If you grew up in the mid-2000s, you might remember Flash games and just how big they were. We didn't have Steam or Epic Games. We had poorly drawn and even more poorly coded games made by some teen who kinda knew how to program, and we loved it. In 2004, one website for Flash games, Miniclip, also inexplicably hosted RuneScape on their site, and it shone like a diamond in a sea of mediocrity. Maybe that's one of the reasons it got as popular as it did back in the day. And funnily enough, most people see 2004 to 2007 as the game's golden era. Maybe it's because we were kids and didn't know any better. Maybe it's because there weren't many options for other better games. Hey, don't get me wrong. Maybe it was because the game was actually good. While Sesama is the name that got the most mainstream attention, there were plenty of other RuneScape celebrities around this time, especially in the PvP community. Kids Range, Jojo 3000, Gigolo J, I Mahatma I. Everyone wanted to be just like these ruthless champions of the wilderness. But there was one name above them all, undoubtedly the most famous RuneScape PKer of all time, Elvemage. And at the height of his career, no one could have expected just how far this titan would fall. So much violence, so much conflict, so much cool loot. This reminds me of this video sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. You've all heard of it by this point. Console game quality right there on your phone. Millions of ways to play as you take on raid bosses, dungeon runs, campaign battles, and the best of all, fights in the PvP arena. Who cares about beating some AI enemies when you can show real people who the boss is? I may be a skiller on RuneScape, but that's because I like taking my bloodlust out in every other game. You don't want to see what I'd be like without raid. My favorite champion is Turvold because he looks like me in real life. Look at that Nordic majesty. His basic skill attacks one enemy 2 times while placing a weaken debuff on all enemies. Also just like me in real life. I also like Norog because he looks like the guy who helps me write my scripts. Just kidding. Norog is great because of his 40% defense aura in dungeons and the ability to lock down enemies by blocking active skills with his default attack. He's good at blocking in general, just like how my script guy is going to block me after hearing this ad. Now, just between you and me, I know you like free money. Don't ask me how I know, it's just a hunch. So what if I told you that I could hook you up with $30 worth of stuff for raid right here, right now? 200k silver, 1 energy refill, 1 XP boost, 1 ancient shard, and 1 epic champion to get you going right from the start. His name is Vergis. Say hi, Vergis.
Hello.
It's a surprise they haven't called me in to voice a champion yet. This epic treasure will be waiting for you here. With all these cool goodies waiting for you, there's never been a better time to get started in Raid. And this offer is only good for 30 days, so don't put it off like I do with all my responsibilities. Click my link in the description or scan the QR code here to grab all that loot I just mentioned and start enjoying your time in the shadowy, legendary world of Raid. Now back to the video. It's not hard to understand why Sesama became such a big name. When you have a dedicated high scores, you just look at the name at the top and go, oh yeah, they're the best. But there weren't high scores for things like PKing. So how did you get famous doing that? Well, at the start, it was literally just word of mouth. If someone got their ass handed to them on a silver platter, you'd know who not to mess with. And if enough people talked about a player beating them down, they'd build a reputation. But it wasn't until 2005 and the birth of YouTube that PKers really started making a name for themselves. Because if you handed someone their ass on a silver platter, recorded it and uploaded it for the world to see, then everyone would know just how much of a god gamer you are. And sure, maybe a cool kill in PvP might not mean that much today. But this was the time when peak content was some kid lip-syncing to the Pokemon theme and a baby biting a child's finger. So those handful of RuneScape videos that showed up were crack cocaine to the 10-year-olds playing the game. And even when you'd start getting thousands of results for RuneScape videos, the kids knew what they wanted. They wanted blood and anguish. Nothing was more popular than PKing videos, especially if they had the edgiest music. YouTube basically became the PKing high scores, as it was the #1 place to show off your PvP skills. PKing clans would use them not just as advertisement, but to show off their clutch wins in clan wars. Big, successful clans like the Pinkies were idolized, because everyone wanted to join them, but no one wanted to meet them. With the epitome of fashion that is the pink skirt, and an unfathomably high kill count that they wanted to add your name to, pink skirts would scour the wilderness for any new target they could get their hands on. But any clan could dominate the wilderness if they had enough people behind them. No, the players really cared about the individuals in the game. Who was the best PKer? Not who had the biggest group. Every kid armed with approximate knowledge of recording software and a free copy of Windows Movie Maker tried making their magnum opus for the world to see. And some of them are really fun watches in the modern day. Get out of here with your 6-way swaps, prayer flicks, and player identification numbers. Cheh. What we're here to see is who has the coolest left clicks and a healthy serving of RNG on their side. For some people, those left clicks and good hits would get you a couple thousand views, in a time where anyone with more than 20k subs was a celebrity. But for others, PKing videos would rake in over 1 million views over the years that followed. That is, if you were good enough. Enter Elvemage. Just one of the many who uploaded his best PKing moments as a YouTube montage. There's not an awful lot to be found about the guy before YouTube, so it's likely he was just another run-of-the-mill PKer looking for their big break. But oh boy, did he get it. Just look at these skills. The skills on display raised the bar for what good PKing was. People watched in awe. They analyzed his gear, copying his setup in hopes of similar results. They went to bed at night and dreamed of hitting those tasty double digits on other players. As an early adopter of YouTube, Elvemage capitalized on an untapped market and rocketed into fame as one of the first RuneScape YouTube celebrities. A crown that fit him well, as in 2006, he was arguably the most famous of them all. The name Elvemage was typed on everyone's keyboards, which is pretty impressive in a time where most RuneScape players didn't know how to spell. The 12-year-old boys playing RuneScape in 2006 fanboyed in the same way that 12-year-old girls listening to Justin Bieber in 2012 would fangirl over their idol. Aggressively forward, occasionally violent, and filled with a burning desire to give them a kiss. Okay, maybe that last one wasn't so true for Elvemage. Rather than having a teenage crush on him, everyone wanted to dethrone him. If you PK'd RuneScape's best PKer, that would make you the best PKer, right? Elvemage had amassed an army of fans behind him, but an army that all wanted to stab him in the back. And with the impenetrable shield of anonymity afforded to them by the mid-2000s internet, there was no reason to hold back. They could say anything they wanted to him. And oh boy, did they. Players would scout the wilderness in every world, looking for any sign of their idol. And once they knew where he was, piles of players would tower on top of Elvemage, piling on abuse or itching for a fight, if not both, as was usually the case. Even if he was the top PKer, there was only so much one man could do against a horde like that. So Elvemage went on to build a team of PKers to join him. Not really a clan, just some extra hands to feature in his later videos, letting him enjoy a reign of terror over anyone foolish enough to step foot in the deep wilderness. And each video only made him more and more popular, putting his fame on par with Zesima by the time 2007 rolled around. In the golden year of the game, Elvemage could not step anywhere close to the wilderness in a popular PKing world without getting swarmed. Now, while that's a cool "look at me, I'm so famous" thing to happen, it's kind of an issue when your claim to fame is PvP. You can't really PK properly if there's 100 people hounding you, waiting to get the drop on you and scaring off any lucrative targets. It was definitely a problem that Elvemage would need to solve if he was to continue PKing. And this was where things would take a turn for the worse. Okay, hypothetical time. What would you do in that situation? Make a new account? Out of the question. Elvemage hadn't even maxed his own combat skills on his account. Getting PvP ready on a new one would be too difficult of a time investment back in the days before efficient training. Plus, if he changed his name, he'd have to rebuild the legacy from scratch, or just end up in the same situation again. Get more friends or bodyguards? Well, if you do that, you're basically just making a clan. And it kind of defeats the point of being the best individual PKer in the world. Just go outside? Haha, yeah, no chance. As my favorite brand of rice says, with great power comes great responsibility. And Elvemage decided to start using his fame for evil. Over the next few months, a large number of forum threads on RuneScape fan sites would detail the shift in his behavior, going from some sort of revered wilderness guardian to a merciless wilderness monster. Elvemage was so popular that large swaths of fans would follow him around in-game, joining him wherever he went. For the most part, these were young kids, not thinking too hard, hoping that their idol would notice them and let them become part of his super cool team of elite PKers.
Wait, hang on. Did he just say we could join his team?
All we have to do is bring our best stuff and follow him into the wilderness?
Well, this is the opportunity of a lifetime.
Finally, we'll get a chance to show off to him. I mean, he hasn't told us what we need to do yet, but it can't be that hard.
Man, it's a good thing that we spent so much on the best items we could. We're about to be living every 12-year-old's dream.
Look, fellas, I can see his team right there. And they're all skulled for some reason.
Elvemage went from being the Zezima of PKing to a known lurer, tricking his many followers into dangerous places before killing them and taking their belongings. Former fans would upload videos showing the lures in progress, and how Elvemage would harass the victims while he or his team cleaned them for all they had. Abuse reports started flying in about how the biggest name in the PvP game was resorting to such dirty tricks, and everyone even slightly clued up about the PKing scene knew of Elvemage's evolution into a dirty fighter. And, as everyone's probably doing already in the comments, there was a lot of debate over whether this was scummy or not. Hey, while you're down there, mind hitting that subscribe button? Thanks. Honestly, some things never change. This happened over a decade ago, and the talking points everyone used back then are still the same ones people use today. Luring is basically scamming and morally wrong. No, anyone stupid enough to get lured deserves it. Heck, some people went as far to say that they should have been honored to have been lured by the PKing legend. So yeah, it was a contentious issue. So for Jagex, the biggest name in PKing openly doing it without remorse wasn't a good look. The most popular types of RuneScape videos on YouTube, the most popular video hosting site were PK videos. So the most popular of those videos all being about luring is an even worse look. And Elvemage had some choice words to say when talking to players and moderators about this new turn in his career. Emphasis on moderators here. It should come as no surprise that on the 24th of February 2007, he received a permanent mute on his account. Now he could no longer trick people into following him into the wilderness, and he couldn't use that sort of language against anyone anymore. Now, imagine what the community's reaction would be if people heard that Zezima had been muted. So, what do you reckon happened next?
Yep, that's right. It's 1266 Falador time. We're rioting.
Elvemage's core fans were not happy. The resulting riot lasted for 14 hours straight, with a large number of players slandering Jagex for the treatment of their idol, and demanding that they remove the mute. It's kind of hard to say that in-game rioters are making coherent arguments, but a lot of people claimed that the mute was unjustified, with some deciding to nitpick the rules and say that luring was technically okay because it technically wasn't scamming, so there was no rule against it. Finally getting to imitate their idol, many attendees were muted for their own specific choice of language against Jagex. Now, you may think this riot caused Jagex to change their minds, unmute Elvemage and apologize for the inconvenience. But you'd be wrong, because like pretty much every other riot in the history of RuneScape, well, except the very first ones, it accomplished nothing. Well, mostly. Luring was officially made against the rules on the 29th of March 2007.
So, thanks for pointing out that loophole, guys.
Unable to speak, but still able to play, Elvemage took his punishment on the chin and rebranded himself as the muted PKer, as he continued PKing, saying nothing in-game. Still holding a strong presence as a videomaker and PKer, the mute didn't even manage to stop him from luring people. making the most of his friends to continue to trick unsuspecting victims towards their demise. And just in case you're still of the opinion that luring isn't bad, you'll be thrilled to know that Elvemage began selling all the proceedings of his lures to black market third-party websites, making the ill-gotten goods doubly dirty by having them real-world traded as well. And that one is definitely a huge breach of the rules. On 31st of August 2007, having noticed one of the most famous names in the game engaging in very suspicious activity, Jagex finally slammed the banhammer on Elvemage, kicking him out of the game permanently. Banksy, a famous street artist, once said that you die twice. Once when your heart stops beating, and once when your name is spoken for the last time. He actually stole that from the Egyptians, something he was probably naturally good at given he's British. I bring that up now because it's kind of a fitting hat to put on the tail of Elvemage. While Sesamo's name is still loved and adored to this day, like a childhood superhero, you don't really hear people talking much about Elvemage anymore. Despite that, Elvemage has gone down in RuneScape history as the most infamous PKer of all time. People spent the following years analyzing his videos, and, as you might expect, there wasn't really anything spectacular about them. His skills were average at best, and most modern PKers would easily have wrecked him. He just managed to upload videos in the right place at the right time, and was the biggest fish in a small pond. When the wilderness was removed just a few months after Elvemage's ban, no other PKer had managed to fill the boots that had been left behind. And with PKing basically dying almost overnight, no one ever managed to beat the level of infamy that Elvemage had reached. It just goes to show the effect that reputation had back in the day. Even if people weren't the absolute best at something, as long as they appeared to be the best, they were the ones the public adored. Kind of like how Sesama got so famous despite just being Mod Mark in an alt account. But Elvemage reveled in his reputation, which is probably why he kept it for so long. He seemed invincible, which is easy enough to do when you're the one who controls the public footage. Elvemage's legacy following his ban has been one of people trying desperately to keep the name alive, and plenty of imposters trying to take his place. Many players named themselves after him on social media and in-game, most famously in the case of the Zerk PKer WTF Elvemage, who gained a solid following on his own after uploading PKing videos of Bounty Hunter during 2008. In 2009, a rumor was spread that Elvemage had been unbanned due to the RuneScape rules being rephrased. It hadn't, by the way. It was just reordered to look better. That didn't stop people trying to sell the supposed account on black market websites, even though they didn't own the account themselves. But you could still totally buy it, trust me, it's legit. In 2014, when names were cleared from inactive accounts and released to the public, the username Elvemage was offered up for the taking, with the person who managed to snag it selling it on the black market to someone who took on its identity to hold Reddit interviews. As late as 2017, a decently sized clan dubbed themselves the Disciples of Elvemage, a name that would fit right in as a faction in Harry Potter. They were accompanied by a good number of forum posts and threads reminiscing about the title or player. Now for the big question. Whatever happened to the real Elvemage? Well, we don't know. Despite uploading a lot of videos, he wasn't ever really a public personality. He didn't comment on forums, and this was before social media took off, so he existed solely in-game and on YouTube. This makes it difficult to tell what sort of person he really was, or any basic facts about him. All we have to go off are accounts written by other people over the years, from a mix of fans and friends of his, so, you know, totally unbiased sources. Elvemage's YouTube channel was eventually locked sometime after his ban for unknown reasons. Probably copyright infringement for the sick montage music, but we can't say for sure. Leaving his YouTube legacy entirely in the form of scattered re-uploads, old screenshots, and the occasional old fan trying to keep the legacy of their once idol alive. You guys better do the same for me one day. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this little deep dive into a specific player rather than a specific topic. There are a few more stars from the old days I'd like to talk about if you're interested in that sort of approach. So leave some comments and let me know the sort of characters you'd like to see me delve into in the future. Or poke me on Twitter. Or send a carrier pigeon. Don't worry about giving them an address. They all know my face. Until next time, my name is Will Missit, and I'll see you all later.